Welcome back to Mirror's Signal podcast. I'm your host, Josh Holloran, and today we're joined by San Harper from the Guild of Mindful Driver Trainers. In today's episode, we start off talking about my journey with mindfulness, having done the course recently with San. And then we talk about all things mindfulness and the benefits that you might find from the practice or maybe doing one of her courses. If you're enjoying the episodes, please make sure that you hit subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes as they go live. You can find the audio or the video version on YouTube, either on the YouTube app or the YouTube Music app. And if you've got any questions or anything for me, then you can find me on the Facebook page or the Facebook group, and they're both available at Mirror's Signal Podcast. Leave any thoughts that you've got in the comments. Make sure that you give the episode a like and feel free to share any of the episodes on the socials. And again, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any episode as they go live. And there is a new one going out every Sunday. So for now, we will get on with the episode. I hope you all enjoy. San, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Josh. Yeah, really good to see you. As I was saying, I love the fish tank. It's giving me a fish tank envy.
Thank you very much.
You
It's
one of them.
it's been cleaned recently, so it looks all right. If it's ever not in the background of an episode going forward, it's because I've let it go a little bit.
Green and Mercury wouldn't have quite the same look.
I know I'm just waiting for the bigger fish. This one here. This will be cropped out actually when I'm filming, but they'll get quite big, so they'll look cool.
Yeah, brilliant. Like it. Yeah, I'm good,
There.
thank you, Josh. Are you all right?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having a chat and seeing how things are going. I've recently done your course, so I think it's going to be interesting to have a chat about that and yeah, see how it's all going your end with everything that you've got going on, basically.
Yeah. No, I love sharing the course with you, and I'm really curious to hear, yeah, kind of how how you found it. One of the main reasons is because we had a conversation before you came on the course, and I remember it sparked quite a lot of curiosity from you. I remember you saying, "Oh, this sounds interesting. I'd like to learn more." And you kind of knew a little bit, didn't you, about mindfulness? And obviously you came and did the course, and yeah, I'm just really curious to hear from you. Be like, I promise not to interview you, but I am genuinely interested just to hear kind of, yeah, what you make of it all, and mindfulness, and yeah, all of that.
I loved it. Let's turn it into you get to interview me. I mix it up a little bit.
Um,
But you know, it's fascinating. On the course, there was so much information, and I think I said at the start of the course, I kind of wanted to understand the why. Why does it work? Why is it so effective? Because I was aware of it and we'd had the chat. There's an earlier episode where we was talking about mindfulness and the benefits. And the course was an eye opener. And I think some of the changes since the course, I've not been as disciplined with my meditation like when we was on the course. I'm sure you'll talk about it, but the kind of homework and the tasks that are set and all of that side of it was great. And I'm finding now I can find when I'm not like in the moment in a lesson, I'm kind of checking myself and focusing on my breathing and getting back into it. It's been fascinating. It just seems to open your eyes to everything. I know one of the do something mindfully, and I still find myself doing that when I'm out with the dog, just kind of taking everything in and you notice things that you've not noticed before when you're out. It's fascinating.
yeah, it's true. You know what? Some people call it falling awake.
Yep.
Does that resonate?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it can feel a little bit like that. But yeah, no, I absolutely love sharing the course because I think you're right. I think a lot of people have a bit of an idea as to what mindfulness is, and it's exactly as you say, it is this paying close attention to, but it's the attitude that we bring with that close attention. It's not just paying attention. as you know, it, as John Kabat-Zinn says, it's in a particular way on purpose and non-judgmentally. And that's the hard part, because we do, as humans, we kind of judge everything, don't we? And we want everything to be maybe different to how it is. But yeah, and it is a practice, because and I know you do other things with regards to you do your martial arts and stuff like that. And I'm sure you can relate that you don't just go and do it. You have to practice, you have to train. And this is the other thing. I think, you know, the more we train ourselves, the more we practice, whether it be formally or informally. There's huge value in informal practice, like you just said, going out and notice things around us. Through this training, through this practice, we get better. We get better at paying attention. And exactly as you just said, we start to wake up. We start to fall awake, and it can be really eye-opening. Yeah. What sort of things have you noticed then? I mean, like you just said, on lessons, I'm paying more attention to kind of how I'm feeling. How is that actually yeah, how is that actually maybe changing or affecting how you are in your lessons?
A few ways, I think. There are some times when I feel a little bit tense, and it didn't really make too much sense, I guess. You don't notice it happening, it kind of creeps up on you and you don't notice it. And I know you said it and we spoke about it on the previous episode, and I think people spoke about it on the course that we was on. But I'm finding myself noticing that when I'm getting a little bit tense and a little bit stressed, and it's like, okay, let's just breathe. And I'm doing that kind of while the lesson's going on. It's not detracting from the lesson, but it's resetting me so that I can give my student the best. So I'm noticing that in myself. And I think I'm much more aware now of my pupil and how they're feeling and the emotions that they're going through, which is strange because I thought I was doing that. Whereas I seem to be able to like pick it up
Mm.
a little more, and I'm more aware of it. And I couldn't quote whether it came from the course or not, but the taking things personally, being able to have those conversations with the student. And an example was I was having a chat today with my student, and she was saying about how she went at a roundabout, private practice, and she went at a roundabout and someone beeped at her because she took the gap. And we decided to have a chat about it. And it was like, well, why did you go if the gap wasn't there? There's so many cars behind, there was this going on, there was that going on. And it's almost like we take everything is about us. Like, I've not taken a gap. Everyone's waiting behind me. It's my fault. Everyone's annoyed with me. Everyone's angry with me. And it kind of, I guess, changed her outlook on it when I was like, well, was everyone sat behind you saying, come on, Josh, get out of the way? Josh is holding all the traffic up again. And then the person that beeped at her because she went, yes, they probably beeped at her because she pulled out in front of them. But if we manage to not take that personally and just have it as a learning opportunity, and okay, we won't do that again, I think it reframes how you look at things and how you take in situations.
Honestly, that has been for me with my own mindfulness practice. And when I first discovered mindfulness in the first course I did, I think that's been the biggest thing in my life. I was a huge ruminator that and would take things very personally. Would get really hurt, you know, just by a just maybe a clumsy word or just, you know, some unintentional, but from other people. But things would hurt my feelings, you know. And exactly as you just said, I recognize now that it's the egoic mind. We all operate from the ego that's in all of us, and it's been able to become the silent witness, isn't it? And you become the impartial observer, and you kind of step back a little bit. But it's for me that was a really new concept. There was a story actually that I heard when I was on this mindfulness course. I think it's from Buddhism it stems from, and it was the story about these people being on a boat on the river, and the boat was kind of got knocked around, and the person on this boat fell overboard and was in the water. And there was a gang of kids on the riverbank laughing, and somebody came up from under the water, and this person was really upset because they thought they tipped him out of the boat, and was really angry and really upset by this, felt really bullied. And then there was a different sort of version of the story. There was the person was on the boat on the water, and the boat got buffeted around, and then the kids were on the bank laughing, and somebody came up, and then they realized that there'd been a tree in the water, and the tree is what upset the boat. And so this whole thing became irrelevant, or taking it personally. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's our perception. It is really helpful. It is really helpful to not take things personally, because we absolutely do, don't we? So with regards to you on your lessons, then you're noticing how you're feeling a lot more. You're checking in, and you're also able to notice how your pupils are responding, and you're able to share with them how this taking things personally can really affect their preoccupation, can't it? Because they're so busy thinking about what other people are thinking, they're not necessarily thinking about what they need to be thinking about, which is what they're dealing with in the here and now. Is there any other aspects from the course? We talked about, for example, doing mode and being mode. And I know just now you were just saying about being really busy and finding it hard to say no. And of course, one of the things we talked about was setting boundaries. And I told you that I actually cancelled a lesson this afternoon, but practice what I preach. And I was talking on the talk I did the other day about me realizing I just wouldn't be bringing the best of myself, feeling really tired. And I was ill last week with a virus. But do you think do you notice now when you're feeling depleted, and are you making adjustments on that front?
Yes and no. I'm noticing when I feel depleted and I need to take some time. Finding the time to do that is the challenge at the minute. I know we was talking before record, we'll talk about it. Like today has been a manic day through my own kind of bad organization skills, and my little boy was ill last week, so I had to take a few days off, and I'm playing catch up this week. But I have really from from next week for now got a grip of my diary, and I talk about this quite a lot, getting hold of our diary and finding time for ourselves. But I am noticing when I'm feeling it, and I'm not as quick to fill gaps. Like when cancellations come in, I'll be like, oh, I've got a couple of hours, I'll take that off. And I do like to just sit, and I think my thing is just sitting in silence for 20 minutes, half an hour, just breathing, relaxing, not quite asleep where I'm like out for the count, but not fully awake. And I feel like that recharges me. And not
Mm,
just for that day, but I think that seems to give me a good couple of days.
yeah. You do that something you do throughout the day, or once a day, or kind of what?
It's what I'll try and do when I get the opportunity. Like tomorrow, I'm looking for my phone as if I'm going to get my diary, but tomorrow it looks like I'm going to have like a 2 to 3 hour gap. So I'll likely come home, do 20 minutes work, and then sit and do nothing for 20 minutes, half an hour, and then a bit more work before I head back out on lessons. And I feel like that allows me to reset a little bit. I don't know, it's a little bit weird, like an afternoon nap, but less
Well,
frequent and not quite a nap.
I'm really curious about this, because you've just said I'm not doing the meditation, but that sounds pretty meditative to me. I mean, what's your definition of meditation? I mean, when you come to sit down, and you I guess you're coming with the intention to sit for about 20 minutes. What How do you kind of prepare for that? What do you do? Do you just literally just sit and just close your eyes, or what do you do?
I meditate. I'm accepting I meditate. Not planned. Well, yes, planned, but not routined, if that's the right way. But in answer to the question, I'll get comfy and I'll just be with my thoughts. You're bringing me back to the course now. Now, this is great. But I'm just kind of with my thoughts. I feel like I've got so much going on. And I
Mm,
use that time just to piece everything together, let it float around, think about what I need to do. And I find that relaxes me once I've got it all on this day. I can do this, I can get this post out, I can edit this video, I can go and do this lesson. And then once I've processed all of that, I kind of have 10 minutes of peace, just not much going on. And then up and I'm refreshed and ready to go again.
That's amazing. It's funny because I think a lot of people have got certain ideas about meditation and maybe what it should look like. But to me, that sounds like you're doing an awareness of thoughts practice. The practice is you're aware of your thoughts, because that's the thing, isn't it? A lot of the time we're really not. We're on autopilot and we've got all these thoughts flying around in our head, a bit like a snow globe that's just been shaken. And it feels overwhelming because we can't get any sort of order. But it sounds you just sitting there for that time. You're actually looking at that snow globe with all that stuff going around. You're actually going, oh, okay, there's that, and there's that, and you're actually making sense of it and allowing it just to kind of settle. That sounds hugely valuable to me. Yeah, that's brilliant. Was that something you were doing before? Is that something you always done, Josh? Or was that a more recent thing?
It's um it's something that I've tried to do, and it's been a few years because I have seen the benefit in mindfulness, but never really understood why it worked and what was happening. But I did always feel like people worried about things that aren't relevant right now.
Yeah,
And I'm my own worst enemy at times because I'll have things that need doing. Like if I do it now, I can rest later, but I find that I'll rest now and do it later. And everything gets done on time, maybe just not as quick as it could be. And I do think understanding yourself is important. And I think that was something that I got from the course was understanding me, what works for me, because you give a variety of so much for people. And it's like you can try this, and we almost layered it up through the course. And I think I just kind of found what worked for me. I'm aware of that, and I'm going to try and use it when I can. Like I love the walks. I'll find myself, I'm on a walk with a dog, and I'll be 10, 20 minutes into the walk, and it's like, let's just take a moment. And I think back to the course, and it's like, let's just take this in. There's no rush. Let's have a look around, see what's going on, and be more mindful. And I
yeah,
think that's what's changed. I find myself just stopping and like, remember what we've done? Let's make use of this time right now. Let's be conscious of the doing.
yeah. I love what you just said there about that. Let's make use of this time, because I think that's what a lot of us don't do. Like if you're in a queue at the bank, for example, and I never go into the bank anymore, but you know what I mean? If you're in a queue or if you're in a doctor's waiting room, often we're there drumming our fingers and we're looking at our phone and we're bored and we're thinking, oh, this is a waste of time. But actually, I think there's a lot of value in just non-doing. But because the society that we live in, we're kind of fed this idea that busy is good. We've constantly got to be striving and achieving and getting something, getting somewhere. But I think there's huge value in just literally just being where, like you just said, being where we're at in the space we're in the present moment. And just, I love being in a doctor's waiting room and just listening to the conversations of people. I find that fascinating. I like being nosy. And then I do things like I notice how when they've done a bit of colour coordination, they maybe match the pattern in the carpet with the upholstery. And I notice the posters and the colours and the textures. And the world does become a much richer and interesting place when you pay this sort of attention. And I find myself laughing at things, that I probably wouldn't have noticed before. And one of my favourite things to do, I've not done so much recently, but I always used to go out and do mindful photography with my phone camera. And I'd go to a green at the end of my road with the dog, and it was the most boring green. It was just a postage stamp, not very big. I would find something different every day. I kid you not. I would find something different. It would be different stages of growth of plants and just all kinds of random stuff. I love peeling paint. You know what I mean? Reflections and shadows and silhouettes. yeah, and I kind of appreciate all this stuff and find it interesting and take a photograph. I'm sure my neighbours must have thought, there's that strange woman again out there, crouching down at the curbside, taking a picture of a dandelion or something. But it's these micro moments, isn't it? It's these micro moments that actually that's life. That is life. And it's these is actually noticing these micro moments, and that's what forms our lives. And if we can be joyful and uplifted over the most basic things, then that's amazing. I think many of us wait for that big thing to come along, don't we? We wait for, oh, it's just another boring day, taking the dog to the green. There's nothing, so boring. I go every day, there's nothing new to see. But actually, I think that it's often what we make it, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the just taking everything in, like you've said, the different trees, and you're looking and you're like, I've never even noticed how big they are before. Just walking along and enjoying being out. And what you said there about like taking that time, you're in a queue somewhere, you're doing something. I think mobile phones ruin so much of that for all of us.
Yeah,
I will pick my phone up. It's not vibrated, but I'll pick it up to check to see if I've had a message come through or anything's changed, or I'll scroll on Facebook or Instagram. 10, 15 minutes later, I've achieved nothing,
yeah,
but I've been doom scrolling. So I try and do that a lot less. And yeah, back to what I was saying at the beginning, it kind of just opened your eyes to so much and less judging of others. I feel like some people are maybe not that aware of themselves,
100%.
but it's like, okay, I'm gonna let them be and I'm gonna do my thing, they do their thing. And I found I had an interesting one a few weeks back actually with one of my students, quite nervous, quite anxious on their driving test. I don't know whether I've mentioned it on here, but the breathing techniques. Now, I'm not qualified in any of it, but I just had a chat with my student. I was like, do you think this might help? This is what I do. This is how I calm my nerves. And what she decided to do, or what we decided working together, was on the driving test, every time she pulled up, she'd, when the examiner said, move on when you're ready, she'd take a second, she'd breathe, she'd check, and then she'd go.
Yeah,
And every time she stopped at a junction or a roundabout, it'd just be breathe and go. And just every time trying to bring herself down to like a good base level. So when it did get stressful, it wasn't too high. And she got off the test, she passed the driving test, and she said that that really helped. She felt so calm all the way through.
yeah. It sounds so basic, Josh, but it's huge. It's huge. And people laugh when I talk about the breath, and people go, yeah, all right, well, of course I'm breathing. If I wasn't breathing, I would be dead, and people laugh and they how irrelevant, but it's so not irrelevant because the way that we breathe affects our nervous system. And one of my pupils actually taught me, this is her teaching me how the use of the breath. So I had a pupil a while ago, and she was literally, before she did anything, she would breathe. I'd hear her kind of take a breath, breathe into the abdomen, breathe out. So before she did pretty much anything, but it was so helpful. And for me, just helping my pupils to be more aware of their inner state. We all have these pupils who completely zone out. And I know there's sometimes there's issues, ADHD and other things can cause certain things like that, for them to zone out and just not be quite there when they need to be. But a lot of the time it's that they're just their patterns of behavior are just being conscious from the neck up. That's just what they do. That's what they were taught at school. You learn this, it's all very cognitive. You're not in tune with the rest of what's going on. You're not recognizing you're in a straitjacket. Your shoulders are up by your ears and your hands have locked up and you're breathing into here. They're completely unaware of that. And the fact that they zone out, and it's literally like the lights are on and no one's home. And when we invite them to connect with the breath, connect with themselves, well, what's actually going on? You know, it really makes a huge difference. They start to wake up. They start to wake up, particularly the ones that have difficulties with awareness. For sure. I mean, obviously there's commentary driving, but just getting them to be present with what's actually going on. Yeah, huge.
I had it when you said then about this tense shoulders up here. I've got a student, hopefully he's not watching and listening, but yeah, he'll be all right. He's a good lad. But that's what he was like on the first lesson. And his response was, "This is just how I am. This is how I hold my shoulders." I'm like, well, if we just try to relax them, and it is now, I don't know how many lessons in, doesn't do it. But it's strange that people think that's just the way, that's just how I am. That's just me. And then they manage to kind of relax and get used to it.
A lot of it's so subconscious. Like I said, I did this talk the other day, and one of the guys came up to me afterwards, and I did a meditation, and one of the invitations is to notice if you're holding tension in the shoulders and the jaw. And he said, when you said that, he said, I noticed how tense my shoulders were. And I was, allowed them to just drop and relax. He said, but I had no idea that I was holding on to that. And I get that a lot. I'm sat just watching TV or thinking I'm relaxed. I think I'm relaxed. And then I tune in and I go, and I notice there's tension. It's not until I reflect, tune in, breathe out and recognize it. But we're feeding all this back subconsciously to our nervous system, this state of perpetual sort of a little bit of nothing major. It's just this perpetual state of a little bit of unease. I think a lot of us live with a lot of the time.
I think the thing I've noticed with it though is it adds up quite quick as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you might just be a little bit stressed, but then something will happen and it just builds and then another level. And then something becomes what should be manageable, kind of unmanageable, and we struggle to deal with it. But the more we can recognize it and bring it back down, this
Do
is
you ever get
fascinating.
it is. Do you ever get out of the car with your students?
I do. I've been doing it a lot more actually. I didn't used to, but because I'm moving more towards 2 hour lessons, a lot more, I offer it them
Mm.
quite a lot when I'm seeing them getting a little bit stressed. I'm like, should we get out? And a lot of the time they're like, no, 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 let's keep going. I'm like, okay, well, let's stop, have a chat, open the windows, get some fresh air in at least.
Yeah, I do it a lot. As much for me as for them. And there's all the invitation, do you want I'm just gonna hop out the car for a minute because I've got a compression in my L5, L6 lower disc vertebrae. So I get out and I mean, honestly, we laugh. I'm like, people think we're standing outside the road doing our aerobics workout, but I touch my toes and I stretch and it feels so good. And I say to them, if you're welcome to join me, you don't have to. I'll literally be like a minute. And mine all get out with me and they all seem to really enjoy it. Yeah, and benefit from it. And some are like, oh, I can't believe you can touch your toes. I can't touch my toes. And we do a little bit of that, we yeah, so we have a bit of a laugh. And I think did a post the other day. It's just so good. It's just yeah, it just kind of like changes the energy. It just relaxes things a little bit more, particularly like you just said, things are slowly starting to build up, not just for them, but for us as well. It just helps to just soften and yeah, let things chill out a little bit. Yeah, so
It's um it's a challenge, isn't it? And I think I'm becoming more aware of the health risks of our job. Um, the sitting in the car, the eating or not eating, the drinking or not drinking, the toilet breaks. It's going to take its toll on
yeah,
us if we do it for long enough.
yeah,
So I think I need to be more aware of the physical side of it, like you said, getting out of the car and stretching. Because if I don't, it's it's not going to end well, I don't think, in 10, 20, 30 years' time.
yeah. I mean, you're a lot younger than I am, but I've got this discompression. I mean, Go figure. You know, I'm sat on my backside. I've been sat on my backside for the last 20 years. I was a secretary before that, in all fairness, but I was up and down in the office. You know, I'd be getting downstairs and here and there. Like you say, we're sat for long periods of time. And it's only really been something that I've really been more aware of much more recently. And I wish I had been more aware with regards to can I say it, the physical elements, the physical tolls of the job. And I'm really mindful, you know, just to make sure I've got something to drink and just to look at my diary and think, well, when's my break? And like you just said, knowing yourself better. We know how we can manage. I know what my limitations are. I know after a certain period of time, I'm no good. I'm no without a break. I have to have my breaks. I have to come home for my lunch because otherwise I'm not performing at my best. I definitely think sometimes we need a bit of a wake up call as to what our own needs are and make sure that we meet them because unless we meet our own needs, we're not necessarily going to be much good for anybody, particularly in the long run, like you say, you know.
I think it's a challenge, isn't it, in this industry, because I think you've got to figure that out for yourself.
Yeah.
And it takes some time to find the balance. That's taken me nearly 4 years to get my diary where I want it. And it's still not even there. I mean, we take today as an example. It's still not where I want it, but it's certainly on the way, and it is much more manageable now. So it's being aware of yourself and how you're feeling and what works best for you. But I couldn't do the days that I used to do. I think that was a necessity when I started to establish myself and find out how long I could sit in the car, how long the lessons are going to be, how many lessons I can do, how much I need to earn. It's like you take all of this in, and then eventually you find, I think you have to listen to yourself
Yeah.
and find what works best.
You know, it's funny though, because you can only listen to yourself if you're listening. And that's the thing, because often our bodies are telling us, hey, hello, slow down, chill out, take a break, hello. And if we're not listening, this is when we get the problem. But the interesting thing is, I was sick last week, because I haven't already mentioned. I think it was flu or something. And I take pretty good care of myself, but I had been really busy. And one weekend, the weekend before last, it had felt a little bit of a treadmill. I helped my husband with his business as well on the Saturday, and then I had a friend, you know, blah blah blah, this long load of things going on. And I do sometimes wonder that if we don't listen to the body will eventually just go, well, stuff this for a game of soldiers. I'm just gonna, you know, I'm gonna make you stop then. And I think sometimes we just have to. And I remember last week there was a moment I posted in the group actually. I don't know if you saw, but there was a moment the other day, and I very slowly dawned on me that I was just led in bed, and I just felt really peaceful and calm, and that really just I almost just felt like I was just pure consciousness. There was no real thoughts going on, and it felt absolutely blissful. I was just there. I wasn't. It's like my snow globe had completely just kind of cleared. I was just there. And then I just looked at I've got this really nice quilt. And I was appreciating the quilt. It was my mum gave it me. I don't know where she got it from, but it was handmade. And I really was appreciating the work that got into it and looking at it and patterns on it and everything else. And I just kind of like noticed how the other flip side of the coin could have me been led there doom scrolling on my phone or just feeling sorry for myself, thinking, oh, I'm going to lose all this money. On all the negative things associated with being off sick. And of course, there are negative things associated with it as well, but things that are beyond my control. And I think that's it sometimes, just being in the present moment. Actually, often the actual reality of what's happening right now is quite often it's actually quite nice if we stop just to notice a lot of the
It,
time.
like you say, I had to take a couple of days off at the start of last week. And yeah, I've not earned the money that I should have earned. And I maybe took an extra day off that I didn't need to take off because I was allowed to go and work. But I was like, I'll just take a day off, spend some time with the kids, not that we can do much, and not worry about what might happen. Now, don't get me wrong, I've got a mortgage to pay and a roof to keep over our heads. But I think looking at everything and not worrying about, oh, I've lost 2 days worth of money. Well, how do I position myself so that if this was to happen again, I don't need to be stressed about it and try and just put some positive spin on it to learn
Yeah.
from it and not have to worry about it in the future.
That's it. No, recently I did this talk for the ADINJC, and it was entitled "Pain is Inevitable and Suffering is Optional." And I don't think we really realise as human beings actually how much choice we actually have got. And I even noticed earlier on something happened that was on the road actually, and it kind of annoyed me. And I noticed I was feeling a bit grumpy. And then when I noticed I was feeling grumpy, I was thinking, I actually got a choice. I don't have to be still grumpy about that. That happened a little while ago. I don't have to still be grumpy about it if I choose not to be. So I thought, well, I'm going to be happy then. And then I actually made myself laugh. And then I noticed I actually did feel absolutely fine because I noticed how I was feeling, and decided I don't need to be feeling like that. We have got a lot more choice. And again, like you just said, it's recognizing the things that we can change. If we can recognize what's not working for us and we can do something about it, of course, why wouldn't we? But a lot of the time, there's things we can't do anything about. And it's just it's learning to, you know, accept it, surrender. Is that the word? I think that's a good word, isn't it? Surrender. Because we often feel like we're fighting, we're in battle with so many things, and it just wears us out.
It does. I have noticed recently, well, how do I word this? It's not that I'm not an aggressive driver. I'm not an angry driver. I don't get road rage. But I do find myself mumbling a few things under my breath when I'm in the car on my own and I see something stupid happening on the road. I'm like, nope, I'm allowed to be angry for a minute about that person, say what I need to say, and then carry on with it. And I'm like, yep, that's out of my system.
Yeah, Josh, I'm the same, honestly. Because we're human beings and we go into fight, flight, and freeze. And if we're feeling a bit fighty, if somebody threatens us with their behaviour on the road, of course, we all do it. But like you just said, the difference is, does it last the next hour, the next day, the next week, the next year, the next decade? And then before we know it, we're a bitter and twisted old person who sees the negative in everything. It gets. This is the thing about this. When I said before about what we practice, we get better at, and if we practice being grumpy and miserable, we get better at it. And then before we know it, we're just a miserable old so and so that nobody wants to hang around with.
It
You know
is
what I
interesting,
mean?
isn't it, when people come back and phone calls with family or whatever, and they're telling you about this person on the road. And I couldn't tell you these examples that happened. All I know is my reaction to the example, and then that was the end of it. We got it out. But like my partner would come back. This person in this car's just done this at the end of our street. And I'm like, okay. I had to reverse and they was in the wrong. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, yep, that happens.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Just don't shout at them. Just keep your windows closed. Shout to yourself, and it'll be all right.
It's funny, isn't it? Because we do it, and it can. And I know this is what I used to do. It would be like a record, and it would go on and on and on and on. But it's the noticing. Oh, here I go again. I'm having that. I'm doing that thing I do. How am I feeling about that? Is it making me feel better? Is it making me feel worse? Probably worse. What's my choice? We'll just breathe. It's okay to be a bit, exasperated by that. Now what? Yeah, absolutely. But you see it a lot on Facebook. People rant, and because it's an outlet. And I totally get it. We have all this stuff building up, and it's like a pressure cooker. This is why we see road rage, but it's not actually about that. That's what people need to remember. It's not actually about that. It's all the other unmet needs, because we've all got unmet needs. It's the unmet needs that are going on through our lives that are building up that we're not paying attention to because we're too busy on autopilot. And all of a sudden we explode, or we get onto Facebook and start being a Facebook warrior and project our unhappiness onto other people and rant and whatever. We feel like we've got to purge. We've got to purge all this anger and all this upset. But what's behind all that in the first place? It's not down to that one incident. It's down to a whole host of things. This is where it kind of gets interesting. And this is why practicing mindfulness can be actually quite hard for many people to start with, because it kind of involves unpacking your crap, for want of a better word. It's just you start to become a little bit of an archaeologist, and you start to kind of, instead of just pushing away and numbing and avoiding, and I don't want to look at that difficult stuff, it can really be really, really hard. Sort of recognizing the things in yourself, actually, that really triggers me. If I'm curious about that, what's that all about? Okay, it's probably because maybe it's because of this experience I have, or because of that. And you start to recognize your own patterns and what the things that trigger you, why they trigger you. And it can become very, very interesting. It's like holding a mirror up to yourself. And then obviously the next stage is compassion, and the practices we learn with compassion with regards to how to help ourselves to feel better. It's funny. I was saying the other day about this story. I love this analogy, and I've shared this. A friend of mine shared it with me, and I love it. And I'm just like sharing it with everybody. But it's so true, and I think of it all the time. And it's a story about apples and oranges. And what it was is, recently I was upset about something. I was trying to tell my husband about it. He just totally wasn't getting it. Really just wasn't on my radar with it. And I was upset about that. I got a little bit cross with him. So he went out with the dog, took the dog out. And when he was gone, I was thinking of a conversation I had with a friend where I quite unkindly said, John's about as deep as a puddle. And my friend said, yeah, but puddles can be pretty wide, can't they? And I was like, oh my God, puddles can be pretty wide. And I realized that what I was trying to get from him, I wasn't going to get at any time soon, because it's like he's an apple tree and I was trying to get an orange off the apple tree. And when I realized that, he came back and I said, I'm really sorry I was off with you earlier. I got cross. I said, I realized it's like you're an apple tree. He's like, yeah, okay, love. Here she goes again. I said, it's like you're an apple tree and I was trying to get an orange from you, but I realized that you don't deal in oranges. That's not your thing. And I just want to say I'm really sorry, because I think you're an amazing apple tree and I love your apples. And I've got other friends that deal in oranges, and that's all good. And he totally got what I was saying. I find that analogy so helpful, because it's this discrepancy gap of what I want. This is what I want. Oh, this is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to say. This is how I want you to behave. But this is a reality. You're not meeting that need. My need was to be heard, for to be validated and understood. It was my need that he was able to meet, because that's just not how he's just not, pretty sort of easy go. He's a Kiwi, my husband, very sort of easy going, easy come, easy go. Like you just said about with your wife. Oh, that's all right, you'll get over it. I wanted more. But I find that so interesting and I think of that a lot. I'm trying to get an orange from an apple tree.
So I think, do you need to have a good understand, like we've spoke about having an understanding of yourself, but do you think the mindfulness is then helping you understand others? And
hugely.
That can also be a challenge. If you don't understand yourself, you don't understand other people, because you can't. So therefore, you don't know what you want, and you're trying to get something from someone and you don't know what they can offer.
Absolutely. And we're reading a book right now, Julie Goff and I. We've got this book, Nonviolent Communication, and this is so brilliant for this. It's so good, and it is exactly that. And it's about how we've got such limited language around our needs. It could be really helpful to actually learn to expand that language, because I could have said to John, I'm really annoyed with you, I'm really cross about something, but it's actually that it's not always about just anger. It's actually, I feel vulnerable because of that, or I feel I'm not being heard, or I feel like I'm invalidated. I feel like I'm, we're such complex creatures, aren't we, as human beings? We're so complex, and there's a lot more. This is what I say about being an archaeologist. There's a lot more under the surface, and if we can start to learn to develop our language around that, not only we, like you just said, Josh, we recognize it in ourselves, but you see people's humanness and their foibles and their vulnerabilities and their weaknesses, and actually it softens your heart. It actually softens your heart towards it, because you don't then all see people as being the bad guy, because most people are born with a good heart. Not all people are good, but most people are born with a good heart. And it's usually the things that happen to them along the way that affect how they relate to the world. And I definitely think that sometimes just recognizing that we are all different, and some people aren't actually equipped to behave in the way that we want them to. They just can't, because they're just not able to. And I think that's really useful with learners as well. Some of them just aren't all equipped to be to handle things as we would. Some things might seem really easy for us, but for some people it's just not. Yeah, so that's a good one. The apples and the oranges.
I like where we've gone with that, and it has very much given me something to think about with what you're trying to get, who you're trying to get it from, what people have, because we're all different as well, aren't we? You know, it's I'm I'm not great for a lot of things. I'm very much solution based. If my partner comes to me with a problem, I think, like you say, I think she just wants to be heard, just wants to talk about. My response is generally, well, what are you going to do about it?
I've got to say, for all I know you can't generalize. I know you can't stereotype, but for all you guys out there, you'll find when if you're with a woman, and they're just doing this, they literally, for the most part, just are processing their own thoughts. They're speaking out loud, and honestly, just holding space for somebody, and maybe even just asking a few questions, or you know I don't know, just because people often don't really need things fixed. It's not really about that, is it? It is about being heard. And somebody, maybe that's what was happening with my husband. I can't really remember the finer details, but I remember being quite cross that he wasn't doing whatever I thought what I was expecting him to do. He was probably doing exactly that, saying, "Oh no, never mind, love, oh, it'll be all right." And I'm just like, but no, you don't understand. Yeah.
Is it you've reminded me of something there that I do, and I'm not sure where it's come from, whether it was from the course or before. I think it was the course, or maybe when we last spoke, around when I'm not listening. So if I'm on my phone or I'm focused elsewhere, my partner, she'll be talking, Nick, he'll be talking away to me, and I'll be like, I'm not listening. Give me a minute.
Yeah.
Right, I'm with you. And then rather than just going through the motions of, yeah, okay, I'm like, I'm not listening right now. I'm just not listening. And now she's used to it. She just stops talking. She's like, okay. But okay, I'm listening. What was you saying? And then listen.
I love that. And it was, I can't remember when we had this conversation, but I remember we did. And I remember, maybe I said this to you, but I say to my husband, "Can I have your attention, please?" Which is hilarious, because exactly, I'm not often talking. He's busy, his mind's somewhere else. He's not listening. And I find that now we both kind of say, "I need to talk to you about something. Let me know when's a good time, or when you finish doing whatever you're doing." And you know what? Giving somebody your full attention is the greatest gift you can give anybody. It really is, because the society we live in, it's a rare commodity, because everyone's just so preoccupied and busy, and just literally, you and I just having this conversation now. We're not on our phones. I'm not looking over your shoulder at the fish. You know what I mean? It's rare. It's a rare thing for people just to be present, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I think that's maybe why I enjoy this so much. Just everything else is done, and this is me. I mean, the dog's going mad, but apart from that, you have 100% of my attention when the dog's not barking. But it's such a challenge just to make that time, like you say, to have a conversation. Because I find even when you go out somewhere, there's something going on, or you're checking your phone, or the phone goes off and you must reply to this message. I'm guilty of that. It's like, look, just let me get through these messages. I'm noticing it. I'm noticing it now. I'm going to have to be more aware and get practice in where my attention goes. This has gone in an interesting turn where I didn't expect it, but I think I need to be more aware of who and what is getting my attention and when.
Yeah, yeah. They say where your attention goes, energy flows. And again, it's about building those neural pathways. And if you're giving your attention to the same things, I guess we have to ask ourselves, well, what is that for my greater good in my life? And obviously your partner is the person you spend your life with, and the harmony in your home, same as me, the harmony in our homes is has got to be important, isn't it? And sometimes I'll say to John, we've both been really busy. He's really, really busy. And I'll say, okay, let's get a date in the diary. What when you free? We need to get a date in the diary. I make an appointment with him, which sounds crazy. I know some people might say it's a date night or whatever, but we'll have a day. And I'm like, right, we need to go out and just go and do something else, because a lot of the time we're together, but we're not together. We're together, but we're not. He's doing something. He's on the computer. He's downstairs cooking tea tonight. I'm talking to you. But yeah, that's it. But I think a lot of it is, it's not our fault, because I think it's just the society that we're living in. This is just how it is. But people that practice mindfulness, or people that just practice awareness, or whatever you want to call it, I think we need more people. This is why I'm so passionate about this. We need more people in the world. This is not just a driving instructor thing. We need more consciousness in the world, so people they're awake to what the hell they're doing, and the choices that they're making.
I think that's important,
Right,
what
that
you
sounded
said
quite
there.
militant, didn't it?
Yeah, but the choices that you're making, it goes back to what you said earlier about we have a choice whether we get angry, whether we laugh.
Yeah,
I have a choice to come home, turn my phone off, or go through a million messages. And me and my partner did have a chat a few weeks back about kind of what you were saying there, scheduling time in the diary. Because I was finding at one stage I was either on phone calls or on Zoom or doing something every night. And she was like, can you just take a couple of nights?
yeah.
And I'm like, actually, yeah, I need to. I'm looking at my diary. It's like, yeah, let's figure this out. And I think it's finding what's sustainable. I know what I've been doing isn't sustainable forever, but it's manageable for a short period. And I guess it goes back to my military days. You can go real hard and really intense for a very short period of time, but you need to know what sustainable is, and then you can step it up if you need to, and then but you need to make sure you know what the base level is, what that sustainability is. And that was always just on tasks, but I guess it spills out into life and my business now and lessons and everything.
Everything, absolutely. And this is why I believe the instructor is the foundational capacity, the foundation. What we bring is the foundations for people to learn. What we're bringing is this, whether you call it energy or whatever it is we're bringing, it filters through. It's the golden thread, and it filters through, and it affects everything. It affects how we sleep. It affects our relationships. It affects everything. And if we're bringing that with us, whether we're conscious of it or not, that's going to filter through into everything. But yeah, it's hugely important. And you do see people. I know I talk to people, some neighbours I used to have, and they would always be complaining about something. And I think it's very easy to fall into that trap. You don't realise it's happening. It's a slippery slope, and then everything is not good enough. Nothing's good enough, and everything needs to be complained about. But it doesn't make for good mental health, does it?
No, and again, it comes back to the choice, doesn't it? You can see it as a negative, or you can choose to either see it as a positive or choose to change it where
Yeah,
where you can. And if you can't change it, why get worried about it?
yeah. It's funny as well. Somebody said, I read something the other day about choosing to take offence. Like, we can choose to take offence. And they were saying that say you had a friend show up late, like you were meeting them for coffee and they were late. you could be offended and be angry, particularly if it was a pattern of behavior, I suppose. But if you had a friend who was late and you were running late as well, or you just wanted a bit of downtime, and you might think, oh, thank goodness they're late, that gives me a bit more time. It's all kind of our perception, isn't it? It's how we perceive the situation. So we have a choice as to how upset we get about things.
I had a friend who used to have a similar saying. He used to say, I'm not giving offense. It's up to you if you choose to take it. And I'm like, oh, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get that. I do think it's quite important that we set boundaries and we're clear about what we expect. For sure, it's not saying that we can just be walkovers if somebody's doing something that isn't, is not fair behaviour. For sure, but yeah, how much we let that impact on ourselves is definitely down to us. For sure.
It has a bigger impact as well, though, doesn't it? Like if someone turns up late, and if you get offended and you get upset, it's not great, but we can't let it affect the rest of our day. And if that's what we practice, we get frustrated easy and we let things build and we keep on. Because I used to feel it, but the bigger impact, and it just continues on that spiral, doesn't it?
This is when mindfulness is hugely, hugely helpful, is to actually be in that silent witness and that observer of ourselves. Say, for example, something, I don't know, somebody did something, or say I had two friends and I found out they'd been out for dinner and I wasn't invited, as an example. In a former life, I might have played over a story. Why didn't they invite me? And oh, fancy, why did they leave me out? Maybe and all this stuff. I would have been upset and offended. Why didn't they ask me? But since discovering mindfulness, my attitude would be now with I'd notice how that landed. Oh, here's disappointment. This is disappointment. This is here now. This is what disappointment feels like. Where am I feeling this? Why am I feeling disappointed? Okay, I'm having thoughts about that now. I'm having feelings about that. But they're free agents. They're allowed to meet up together and do what they want. It doesn't lessen my validation as a person and as their friend, and that's okay. And just learn to just breathe. Okay, there's a disappointment that would have been nice, but maybe they want to talk about something that isn't of interest. And I think it's really helped me just to allow things to be as they are. We'll talk about this discrepancy gap, realizing I'm trying to get an orange from an apple tree because it's something's happening I can't control. And just allowing things to be and just notice the thought, notice the feeling, and then just give myself compassion. It's okay, you're a human being. You're allowed to feel a bit disappointed. Anybody would feel a bit left out. It's okay. Don't worry, your time will come. You've got other things going on, and being kind to ourselves. But it's funny, isn't it? It's how we perceive things and where we choose to go next, for sure.
It has a massive impact everywhere. It's fascinating. It really has. The courses changed how I look at things. Like you say, that perspective, it's given me time to just take in what's happening and being more conscious of things. I should do more, and I will. I think at the minute, it's nice to know that it's there, and I need to make time to bring it back into my life and have that balance. But it's been an interesting kind of learning experience going through it, and the detail that you went into and why things are happening and why we respond to certain things in certain ways and what's happening with the brain. The brain, I've said numerous times on the podcast, it fascinates me how we can control it or how we can be so unaware
Yeah.
of it and the
It
impact of both.
absolutely. It can be our inner enemy or our inner ally. Yeah. We do get to choose, don't we? Absolutely. Yeah. It is. And I know a lot of people think, you speak about mindfulness, the word mindfulness, it doesn't really convey the superpower that it is. Because it's just a word. Mindfulness doesn't mean an awful lot, but it is a superpower. It's you're just ramping up your awareness of everything, and you see things a lot more clearly, including other people. And I do think a lot of people actually lose friends by choice when they start practicing mindfulness because they see things a lot more clearly. and they recognize their own needs, and they recognize, what their choices are. And that might all not always involve, there's certain people in lives that maybe aren't serving us so well, So it's a very interesting thing to explore. So hopefully you'll sort of, keep exploring a bit more. And like you say, I don't think there's any hard and fast rules. I think whatever works for you, but there's always time in the day just to stop, even if it's just for a minute or two. And there's huge value in simply just stopping and checking in. I think, that stop acronym.
It's great. So much to take away from it and so much that I can take forward. It's really interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next. We'll absolutely keep in touch. I know you're all over the place, so I'll be able to keep up with what's going on the socials.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you know about this actually, but I'm going to be at the Mindfulness Festival in Manchester.
Okay.
So it's on the 19th of October. So I'm going to be there. I'm not talking, but I've got a stand and I'm going to be talking to people. I'm going to nab people as they come past and talk to them about mindfulness driver training and how that as drivers we all need to be paying more attention.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah. Gary Thomas is going to come with me because he lives in
He's great.
He really is great. Yeah, he's a massive advocate of mindfulness and compassion. He's very, very knowledgeable as well.
He's he's all over the place. I don't think this is the first time he's been mentioned in a podcast episode as well. So
Yeah.
he's
But
doing great.
yeah. Brilliant. So, well, if you're free, Josh,
I will, when I go through this, the 14th of October, isn't it?
I think it's a nine. I'll check 19th.
19th.
I'll
We'll
let you
we'll
know. I
check.
think it's 19th.
All my family are in Manchester, so I got
Ah,
somewhere to stay.
nice one. Oh, yeah, see.
But what I would like to do quickly now with you, if possible, should we run through some tell me questions? Do you mind if we
sure.
go through them?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first tell me question, can you tell me what car you would drive if it was the only car you could drive forever?
I've always kind of really like. Oh, this is going to sound really bad. I really like Bentley Continentals
Nice.
and Range Rover Sports.
Not bad.
Don't know why. I just see them and think, oh, I like looking at it. Obviously not really for teaching people to drive, but yeah, this is in my dream situation, not as a driving instructor, obviously.
One day.
Who knows?
Can you tell me if you could deliver a driving lesson to anyone, who would it be?
That's interesting. I'd love to give a driving lesson to somebody like Eckhart Tolle. I don't know if you've heard of Eckhart. He's he's the person that basically made me fall awake because I listened to The Power of Now, which is just amazing. The audiobook, I'd recommend anybody listen to that. He's just so, honestly, he makes me laugh. He's so zen, but he's funny. He's really funny with it. To him, I'd like to see whether if he is unflappable. Learning to drive. That'd be interesting.
Nice. Can you tell me the best advice you ever received?
Yes, it's not necessarily advice per se, verbally, but my brother bought me the book called The Four Agreements, and it's by a guy called Don Miguel Ruiz. It's really quite a small book, easy to read. And there, obviously, I was going to say there's four, obviously. The first one is be impeccable with your word, which means don't be slagging people off behind their back and gossiping. Don't take anything personally, because as we've already established, it's never about us. It's the egoic mind that thinks it is. Don't make assumptions, because we don't, until you've walked a mile in somebody else's shoes, you don't know what their story is and what's going on for them. The mind likes to make up a story, and quite often it's wrong. And always do your best. But that comes with a caveat. And that caveat is that always do your best is going to look different on any given day. So sometimes doing your best might just be just getting out of bed on a morning, So always do your best is just, whatever you can do on that day. So I think that's quite good advice to live by.
Yeah, some great points there for people. The next question, can you tell me your favorite book?
Well, I've got to say The Power of Now. I don't know, favorite. I guess the most life-changing, the most transformational. I listened to it on a flight to New Zealand, 7 hours on the way there, and I listened to it again on the way back.
Wow.
And it was a real like life-changing thing for me, the power of now. So I'd say the power of now, life-changing. Yeah.
Nice. Can
That's
you
by
tell me? Oh,
Eckhart Tolle, by the way, who I just referenced about who I'd like to learn, who I'd like to teach to write.
we'll get the link in the description for anyone looking for the
Okay.
book. Can you tell me one message you would give to someone who's considering becoming a driving instructor?
Don't do it, no. One message I'd say: look after yourself, be kind to yourself. Don't keep looking for external validation. Do you? Do you? A lot of people, I think, feel very inadequate. I think we can all go out there and learn what we've got to do, and obviously we want to be successful, but I think the first thing is just to learn to be kind to yourself, look after yourself, because if you're not, you can't give from an empty cup.
Nice.
And it's the courage of your own convictions. Nobody can do you. You can't be a carbon copy of another instructor. You can only be you, and that's okay.
Nice. Can you tell me one piece of advice you give a student before they go for their driving test?
Breathe. Yeah, because often they breath hold, don't they? They hold their breath, or they breathe quite fast. So I say just remember to breathe. Yeah, quite
Nice.
simple, really.
It's simple when you know. Can you tell me something you wish you were better at?
Oh God, lots of things. Social media, marketing-y, businessy, boring-y, things like that. Um, yeah, I kind of would like to be a bit more astute. If that's a word for it. I'm too much for creative. I'm too much for creative. How the hell I'm even a drive instructor? I don't know. I consider myself to be a creative, I guess.
Nice. That's something I wish I was better at. Socials. Good
Yeah.
answer. And the final question, have you got any final messages? So this is where you can plug whatever you want, share whatever you want.
Final message. So yeah, I mean, I'm passionate about this. I'm passionate about mindfulness and compassion. I'm passionate about helping other people just to feel better, not to feel so alone or so, to struggle. I mean, I was struggling with anxiety and pain, muscle pain, physical pain. Um, I found it really helpful. I'm happy to share what I know with people. Obviously, there's courses running. There's one running at the moment, and there will be others. I haven't got any dates yet, but I need to think about that. Look at the diary. I'm going to be at the Mindfulness Festival in October, Manchester Mindfulness Festival. And what else am I doing? I'm going to take a little bit of downtime, I think, over the summer because it's been quite busy, which is great, but I'm going to just sort of practice not doing so much, practice just being and less doing, which is obviously what I massively advocate. So I need to practice what I preach a little bit, don't I?
Certainly. And I think we need it at times, don't we?
Oh, yeah, we really do. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the treadmill of life, hey?
Nice. Well, we will get your socials. Where can people find you? Let's go
So
there.
you can find me at the Calm Side. So it's www.thecalmside.com. Obviously, teach ADIs, mindfulness and compassion, but I have been doing a little bit of corporate stuff as well. If anybody's got any contacts or anybody they know that might be interested with regards to fleet kind of training with regards to mindfulness and compassion, give me a shout. But yeah, I'm on Facebook and under the Guild of Mindful Driver Trainers, and on Instagram. And if you Google San Harper, I'm sure you can find me. And I pop up here and there and everywhere. And I do a little bit with Kit Mag and obviously with yourself and a few other podcasts, and bits and pieces. So people can, if they Google me, hopefully I'll pop up somewhere.
Yeah, we can give Terry a shout. I think you're a regular on Terry's the Instructor podcast,
Terry,
aren't you?
yeah, and also Kevin. In fact, I need to reschedule with Kevin because we were due a call last week. And Terry, I was meant to speak to last week. I had to cancel a couple because I wasn't well. So hopefully I'll get to catch up with them both soon.
That's is that Kevin Selwood
Howard.
on the
Oh,
Excel
the Excel
podcast?
podcast. Yeah, thank you.
We'll give him a plug as well. Why not?
Yeah,
Head over there when you're
absolutely.
done with this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so there's some really good resources out there, isn't there, at the moment?
So much, especially with what you're up to. And thank you so much for your time tonight, San. It's
Been a
been great to
pleasure.
chat with you again.
Yeah, no, it's an absolute pleasure, Josh. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for yeah, having me along tonight.
Thank you very much.